Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet? Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. I never mustered the courage to tell my husband why I left him. Even now, years later, the words catch in my throat. We were married for 7 years, years filled with laughter, shared dreams, and what I believed was love. Our life seemed picture perfect. A luxurious apartment overlooking Central Park, a playful golden retriever named Max, and plans for a family that never quite materialized. It all began on a crisp Saturday evening in Manhattan. The city buzzed with energy as autumn leaves danced along the sidewalks. We had invited our closest friends and both sets of parents for a dinner party. I spent the entire day preparing, selecting the finest wines, crafting an exquisite menu, and ensuring every detail was perfect. "Emma, this souffle is divine," my mother-in-law praised, her eyes lighting up as she took another bite. "Thank you, Linda," I replied with a warm smile. "I'm glad you're enjoying it." My husband, David, was the life of the party, charming, witty, and attentive. He moved through the room effortlessly, making everyone feel at ease. I watched him from across the room, feeling a swell of affection. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, my mother hugged me tightly. "You and David make such a wonderful team," she whispered. "Thanks, Mom," I said, though a hint of doubt tugged at me. After the last guest departed, the apartment felt eerily quiet. I began clearing the table, stacking plates, and gathering silverware. David loosened his tie and collapsed onto the couch, flipping through channels. "Mind giving me a hand with these dishes?" I called out, balancing a precarious stack of plates. He glanced over, barely lifting his eyes from the TV. "In a minute," he mumbled. I clenched my jaw but said nothing, carrying the dishes into the kitchen. As I scrubbed the plates, I could hear the faint sounds of a basketball game and his occasional cheers. Frustration bubbled up inside me. "David, I could really use some help." I tried again, louder this time. He sighed dramatically. "Emma, can't you handle it? I've been entertaining guests all night." I turned off the faucet and walked into the living room, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "You've been entertaining?" "I cooked a 4-course meal and played hostess while you chatted with your buddies." He muted the TV and looked at me with a frown. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" "Because it's always me doing the work while you take the credit," I snapped. He rolled his eyes. "You're overreacting, just like your mother always does." I felt a sting in my chest. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," he said nonchalantly. "You're acting just like her. Always nagging, never satisfied." "Don't you dare bring my mother into this," I warned, my voice shaking. "Why not? She was criticizing me all night." "David, don't you think the music is too loud?" "David, have you considered a different career path? It's like she can't help herself, and now you're the same way." I stared at him, disbelief and hurt flooding me. "That's incredibly cruel." He shrugged. "If the shoe fits." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You know what? Forget it." I turned on my heel and headed back to the kitchen. "Fine by me," he called after me. "Maybe next time, don't invite people over if you're just going to complain about it." I spent the next hour cleaning up alone, each clatter of dishes matching the anger pulsing in my veins. His words replayed in my mind, each time cutting deeper. How could he compare me to my mother? He knew our relationship was strained. The next day at work, my colleague Sarah noticed my sour mood. "Hey, Emma, you look like you could use a coffee." "My treat," she offered. "Sure," I sighed. "Why not?" As we sat in a cozy cafe near our office, she probed gently. "Rough night." I stared into my latte. "Just had an argument with David. He said some hurtful things." "Do you want to talk about it?" "He compared me to my mother," I admitted. "Said I was nagging him, just like she does." "Ouch," Sarah winced. "That's harsh. Tell me about it. I just feel so unappreciated." She gave me a sympathetic look. "Maybe you need to shake things up a bit. Do something for yourself." Later that afternoon, as I was organizing files, I received a text from Mark, one of David's coworkers. We'd met at a company event months ago, and he'd always been friendly, perhaps a bit too much. "Hey, Emma, how's your day going?" The message read. I hesitated before replying. "Not bad. You?" "Can't complain. Thinking about grabbing a drink later. Care to join?" A rebellious thought crossed my mind. Sure, I could use a drink. We met at a sleek downtown bar, all chrome and dim lighting. Mark greeted me with a warm smile and a hug that lingered just a second too long. "You look amazing," he said, his eyes scanning me appreciatively. "Thanks," I replied, feeling a flush creep up my neck. We chatted easily, the conversation flowing with the wine. I laughed more than I had in months. As the evening wore on, the space between us on the plush leather couch diminished. "Can I be honest?" he said, his voice low. "Is that a good idea?" I teased. "I've always found you incredibly attractive," he confessed. My heart skipped a beat. "Mark." He leaned in, his face inches from mine. "Tell me to stop, and I will." I thought of David's dismissive tone, his hurtful words. In that moment, I wanted to reclaim some sense of power, of desirability. I didn't tell him to stop. A week later, the weight of my actions pressed heavily on me. The thrill had faded, replaced by a gnawing guilt. I had avoided David, leaving early and coming home late. He noticed. "Is everything okay?" he asked one evening as I shuffled into the apartment. "Fine," I said curtly. "You've been distant lately. Did I do something?" I bristled. "Why do you assume it's about you?" He looked taken aback. "Because we're married, and I care about you." I laughed bitterly. "That's rich, coming from someone who treats me like an inconvenience." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Forget it," I snapped, heading to the bedroom. "Emma, wait," he called after me. "We need to talk." I spun around. "Talk? Now you want to talk? After insulting me, belittling me?" He sighed. "I admit, I shouldn't have said those things. I was out of line." "Too little, too late," I muttered. "What's that supposed to mean?" I met his gaze, a mix of anger and sadness swirling inside me. Maybe I've realized that this marriage isn't what I want anymore. He stared at me, shock evident on his face. "Are you saying you want a divorce?" "Maybe I am." "Is there someone else?" he asked quietly. I hesitated, then lifted my chin defiantly. "What if there is?" His expression hardened. "I can't believe this." "Believe it," I said coldly. He shook his head. "You're not the woman I married. People change." He scoffed. "Clearly." Our divorce was swift. David seemed eager to finalize everything, and I didn't contest it. He kept the apartment and Max. I moved into a smaller place uptown. 2 years passed. I tried dating, but nothing stuck. I threw myself into work, but an emptiness lingered. One sunny afternoon, I was walking through Central Park when I spotted David sitting on a bench, tossing a frisbee to Max. They looked happy, carefree. A pang of nostalgia hit me. Gathering my courage, I approached. "Hi, David." He looked up, surprised. "Emma, hello. Mind if I sit?" He gestured to the empty spot beside him. "Go ahead." Max bounded over, tail wagging furiously. I scratched behind his ears. "Hey, buddy. Missed you." "He's getting older," David commented, but still full of energy. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. "You look well," I offered. "Thanks, so do you." I took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you." He turned to face me. "What is it?" "I never told you why I left," I began, my heart pounding. I cheated on you with Mark." His jaw tightened, a flicker of pain crossing his eyes. "I see." "I'm so sorry," I continued. "I was angry and hurt, but that's no excuse." He stood up abruptly. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve to know the truth." I couldn't carry it any longer. He looked down at me, a mixture of sadness and anger. "You destroyed our marriage for a fling?" "It wasn't like that. Save it." He cut me off. "You know what that makes you? A selfish, unfaithful liar." I flinched at his words, but knew I deserved them. He shook his head. "I spent months wondering what I did wrong, trying to fix something you had already broken." "I'm sorry," I whispered. He scoffed. "Sorry doesn't change anything." He clipped Max's leash back on. "I need to go." "David, please." "Don't contact me again, Emma," he said firmly. "We're done." As I watched him walk away, I felt a crushing weight of regret. His words echoed in my mind, each one a dagger of truth. Update. A few weeks after our encounter, I received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a handwritten letter from David. Emma, I've had time to reflect on our conversation. While your confession hurt, it also provided closure. I needed to let you know that I forgive you, not for your sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger only prolongs the pain. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. Please respect my wish for no further contact. David. Tears blurred my vision as I read his words. His forgiveness was more than I deserved. Psychologist's perspective. Emma's story highlights how unresolved conflicts and poor communication can lead to destructive choices. Instead of addressing her hurt feelings directly, she sought revenge through infidelity, which only compounded her guilt and led to the breakdown of her marriage. Her husband's dismissive behavior and hurtful comments contributed to her feelings of unappreciation. However, Emma's decision to retaliate rather than communicate perpetuated a cycle of negativity. When she finally confessed, David's reaction was one of hurt and anger, which is a natural response to betrayal. Calling her a selfish, unfaithful liar reflects his pain and sense of betrayal. This story underscores the importance of open communication and addressing issues head-on. Couples facing similar challenges might benefit from counseling to navigate their emotions and rebuild trust. Conclusion. In the end, Emma learned that actions born out of anger and hurt can have lasting consequences. Her journey serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting pride and resentment dictate our choices. Healing begins with honesty, both with oneself and with others.